video and subjecting you to this, but I promise it's gonna be fast. I gave you a paper 3 that Mr. Morgan is currently synthesizing for you, and that'll be your parting gift. I'm gonna hand out some data booklets.
Oh, take one pass. These are done. Take one pass.
You accept it?
Take one pass.
And you're gonna try page 34. See if we're close.
That's it. You haven't accepted it.
Karthika told me I meant 35 when I said 34.
Wait, why didn't you accept
It's the one with the vitamins, 35, yes, page 35.
it? Thank you. Oh, you have to finish to accept it?
Yeah.
Oh. I didn't know that. Doesn't tell me.
You want your public health exam?
I thought it was that you could be like, yes, I will.
I didn't know I took it.
No, I'll take it.
I will not take it.
You gotta smack me around. I think she did the same thing I did. She let the rest photocopy.
Gotcha. This one keeps on going.
Yes.
Um,
Thank you, Karthika.
What are we doing?
Oh, you don't kill one. I didn't know where you're sitting, so I
Are
took
we
it.
gonna do the entirety of the oxygen focus?
I followed you around for a minute and then lost
I'll see you later.
motivation. Thank you, Ethan. Who has Seattle's best coffee? That's not me. Sort of, but no. Part B is almost entirely on the option. Part A is.
It has like little ornaments.
Is there something in? Oh, it's the meeting.
Oh. So I opened my data booklet to table 35 on page 35 conveniently. It has the vitamins, so you clearly don't need to know their structures. They're free. To define a vitamin, it's something that you can't get without ingesting it in sufficient amounts. So vitamin D, you know that your body makes it because you guys are more advanced in some of this learning than I am, but you don't make enough of it in some cases, so we still count it as a vitamin. Other things like vitamin F don't exist anymore because we figured out you do make them and we don't need to supplement them and we didn't know what we're doing. Macronutrients are what we've talked about so far. We talked about carbs, lipids, and proteins. Those are things that we eat in order to get energy. Vitamins are not that. Things we need in very small amounts. I think Karthika used the word essential. They are classified by function, not by structure. We had like a great discussion about B vitamins last time, so I looked up what they were. There you go, lots of B vitamins that you take. So like B12 has cobalt in it. It doesn't have a structure remotely like the structure of niacin, but they are all water soluble. They all have to do with energy production, honestly. And so they're all in the B class.
What are they usually in like the protein, lipid, carb?
Vitamins outside of it. Outside. So those are all macronutrients that you need. These are micronutrients. These are things you need in small quantities that don't necessarily have those structures. So vitamin D has a structure similar to that of a lipid. Ascorbic acid, vitamin C has a structure similar to that of a sugar, but they don't fall into those categories. In the old days, you did have to know some consequences of vitamin deficiency, and so this is just really vocabulary. If you knew one of these, I think it would do plenty. Since y'all are talking about golden rice in that other class, feel free to talk about thiamine deficiency and berry and golden rice. Yeah, I swear it's not vitamin A, it's vitamin. Berry is a disease that means you don't have enough thiamine. You don't want it.
No silent. Oh, very.
Sickness. So to be honest, I've done a lot of studying for today, Brecken, and you want to know what I didn't study? Very. Don't care.
Lost of appetite, weakness, breast war. I know.
There you go. Yes, please. We like your monkey.
That's a frog.
Frog. Sorry. I didn't see the front. Let me see when you leave. Oh, it's a frog. Yeah. don't call themselves biologists.
It's like you don't have
In developed countries, there's little evidence of vitamin deficiency, or at least primary vitamin deficiency, but millions in the world still suffer. So a question that has been asked is like, what are you gonna do about it? What are some things you can do to prevent vitamin deficiency?
It was proper food distribution and then storage.
So one thing we can do is assess difficulties in the production and storage of healthy foods.
hypothetically for, well, like 5 minutes. We should have like recycling urine and drinking water.
I don't have that, I don't know. The answers are you can ship off vitamin supplements, you can educate people about healthy eating, you can make some transgenic plants if you're really in the mood. I've been learning a lot about that in the last 24 hours, so that's what I would do right now.
It's making ketogenic plant like the thing they do
I'm sure they do it at A&M. Makes you want to go, like, rethink what you want to be.
Exactly, yeah, like it's so interesting.
Uh-huh.
For PMSA, that's like the nutrition school or whatever. So we went to like their labs and they were doing these things about how like they were producing like a vegan type of like eco fuel with like some I can't remember what it's called. And then we also went to like their lab facilities where they have like different like species of goats that like do different things or like have different nutritional benefits, and they were like showing us how you like take the meat and then and do all sorts of stuff.
That's awesome. Did Deidre take you there?
Miss, yeah.
I think she works there full time now. Maybe she set me up. I don't know. She'll still be my friend, but there was a day. We typically classify vitamins into two larger classes than just the letters. The water soluble ones are B and C. They have a half-life of like at most a couple weeks. So that's why Andre can eat as many freaking vitamin C gummies as he wants.
Most of them are so good.
If you look at the structure of vitamin C, can you explain to me why it is water soluble? So the presence of OH groups allows for hydrogen bonding with water. It doesn't have hydrogen bonds, it can hydrogen bonds. It's a subtle but important distinction. Vitamins A, D, E, and K, on the other hand, are fat soluble. Can you look at vitamin D and tell me why perhaps you think it is fat soluble? Has tons of hydrophobic groups, or lots of alkyl chains and alkyl groups. And it is certainly not looking like it's going to be able to hydrogen bond much with water. It has that singular OH. It's just not enough to support the largeness of the aliphatic portion of that molecule. Aliphatic. What? That's why it's in parentheses. I think we're unclear on how we feel about K. But A, D, E, and K. Stored in the liver. Should you overdose on, that's a bad way of saying it, should you take too much vitamin D? It's probably not bad for you because you store it in your fat. But if you were then to get like a disease that made you lose weight very quickly, you can get hypervitaminosis, which means that the vitamin D is flooding into you really fast and you can get poisoning from that vitamin. So it's typically something that happens later. It's not something that happens in the intake. It's something that happens later in your life when you get ill. We discussed primary vitamin deficiency. None of you have that. Taking in a healthy diet is usually enough. Taking in a vitamin supplement is always enough. Secondary vitamin deficiency is when you have an illness that requires you to have a need for a vitamin that far exceeds a normal need. So people who have alcoholism, people who are pregnant, have needs for vitamins that are different than your needs. And so they can have secondary vitamin deficiency. So pregnant ladies always have to, these days, supplement with folic acid. Something about closing up the spinal tube you were talking about last time. And then the word hypervitaminosis all of these are one mark questions where we either know the definition or we don't. There's no deep thinking here. Just definition. Yeah. I think most of this unit is just definitions. Very chill. I get spoiled with PowerPoint because it tells me what's coming next. It's a keynote. That's vitamin A. Vitamin A gives the orange color to carrots. It's used in the light harvesting antenna in plants that apparently we don't discuss in the other class. In addition to chlorophyll, plants have other pigments that collect light. Carotenes are one of them. They organize themselves in a little circle. It absorbs a different color of light, makes plants more efficient. Rabbits can eat just a ton of vitamin A. They can eat all the carrots that they want. That's because they have a very low-fat diet, yes. Yes, ma'am. I think it probably actually went the other way. I think it was called a carrot, so we called the molecule carotene. If you look at that molecule, you're going to notice that it has Dr. Hennessy's favorite structural motif in organic molecules. That would be an alternating double. What?
Carrot has 2 R's.
Carrot has 2 R's.
I think maybe Latin or French are
English and smoky.
My structural motif was lost. That was such a good sentence.
Does carrot in French have 1 R?
What?
Does carrot in French have 1 R? So it's CAROTT.
I think I like that. Yeah, but carrot in Spanish is some goofy word. Zanahoria. I don't know. Emphasis on syllables. Dr. Hennessy's favorite structural motif in a molecule is the alternating path of double and single bonds. We call that conjugation. So if you look at carotene, you're going to notice that from here to here, we have an alternating path of double, single, double, single, double, single, double, single, double, single. We associate that pattern of conjugation with biological pigments. Carrots are orange because of that. There are delocalized pi electrons that can move along that chain that lowers the energy between the pi electron and the empty orbital above it, such that it is commensurate with visible light. It absorbs visible light and appears a complementary color, just like your transition metal complexes. I'm ready for anything, Audrey. Yes. B9 pigments is going to be about this, so I'm just trying to front load a little on pigments, because y'all are even worse after spring break. I'm going to try. So we have this alternating double and single bonds. You could draw a resonance structure of that where the double bonds and the single bonds flop. We have pi electrons that are delocalized, and the length of the delocalization in this molecule is about yay big. About that big. Yay. You analyze poetry, you can handle yay. It works a little bit like a musical instrument, so we take out our favorite recorder, and when the chain is long, it's like we have everything closed on our recorder, so it makes a nice low note. The amount of energy it's going to take to promote a pi electron into the lowest unoccupied orbital is low in this large box, because all of my fingers are down. It's commensurate with visible light, and so it will appear the complementary color. When, on the other hand, we do not have conjugation that extends over such a length, so let's say we had butadiene, that molecule with the appropriate hydrogens, the box is much shorter. That means on my recorder, instead of having all of my fingers down, I'm going to play a much higher note. When I play that higher note, I'm implying that the energy for this transition from the highest occupied state to the lowest unoccupied, the electron transition, is going to be at higher energy. It would absorb UV light and it would appear colorless. So butadiene is white, like most organic molecules. But in the event that I can get this long section of alternating double and single bonds, I get visible light. To an unoccupied or anti-bonding, typically pi molecular orbital. Yeah, you don't want to say that again. Like, I mean, it's a true statement, but. So like with the d orbitals, you know that the T2G is gonna go up to the EG, because you had to know the names of those for the atom. Here, because we have delocalization across the molecule, we don't have atomic orbitals, we have molecular orbitals. And so we're taking the electron that's in the highest energy molecular orbital that's occupied, and talking about how much energy it would take to move it to the lowest unoccupied level. And I'm saying in a small box, it's big, it makes that high-pitched, terrible recorder noise, and in a big box, it's small. The extent of the delocalization is long, and so if you strum an open guitar string or play a closed recorder, it's a nice low energy, low note.
So what's that chain called?
It's called a conjugated chain, if you want, I guess, a word for it. Or a sequence of alternating single and double bonds would be a fine name for it. Or a region of pi electron delocalization. Ramy, what you got?
No, I was gonna ask what type of electrons.
Pi. So you've seen this before. There's my favorite molecule, phenolphthalein. Pink thing?
That's in favorite molecule?
No,
Do you have a favorite molecule?
not that I know of, but it ain't this one. So you guys know that in the presence of base, it's pink, and in the presence of acid, it's colorless. That's because you protonate and deprotonate the molecule, and protonating and deprotonating seems to affect it really in this area. On the left-hand side, do you notice that there are two single bonds no matter how I traverse through the center of this molecule? And so the boxes, the areas of electron delocalization on the left-hand side are just localized to the benzene rings. They're relatively small. On the right-hand side, when I deprotonate phenolphthalein, you can see that I actually form a double bond here that extends the electron delocalization such that it's actually over the entire molecule. The area, because this is more two-dimensional than carotene, is much larger for the pi molecular orbitals, so the energy is much lower, and so this appears colored. Can you imagine what chlorophyll looks like? Yes! Great, I'm so glad you all said yes so fast. On the left, I have hemoglobin. On the right, I have chlorophyll. What do you notice about these big, beautiful porphyrin molecules? Look, they have alternating double and single bonds all through that porphyrin. Yo, they're colored. So it's not like we have d orbital transitions in magnesium. It's really that we have this big organic framework that's allowing it to be colored. Here's a better picture of a porphyrin. This is what's holding that metal ion. You see a big section of alternating double and single bonds. It comes from the Greek word for purple, porphyrin, purple. It's a profoundly purple compound. Hemoglobin has the iron in it, so it will change the color. Porphyrin is the cage, so this ring is a porphyrin. There are different accessories on it that change hemoglobin and chlorophyll. Probably the more important accessory is that we get some coordinate covalent bonding from those nitrogens to the irons to hold it in place. So trying to turn that into a heme. It's not exactly this molecule, but it's colored so much because of that pi electron feature.
So like the big takeaway from the double and single bonds is that it can absorb light?
The big takeaway from the double and single bonds is
Is that it can absorb light?
absorb visible light.
Visible light, yeah. So that's,
Yes, that is the takeaway. That ain't it. So for the d orbital, the light is absorbed, and the electron travels from the low energy to the high energy state and absorbs absorbs light, it appears the complementary color.
Can it not absorb anything outside of visible light?
A porphyrin?
It's like vitamin A groups and things.
It certainly can. So, the question you're asking to me is, you're going on spring break with Quinn, y'all need a hotel room. I don't know, like, I was just trying to, so Moheb's question was, can you absorb different colors of light? So whether we're talking about a nice iron 2 compound, or we're talking about the beta carotene, can it absorb not visible light was the question. So what I was trying to say, I guess stupidly, is they're going on spring break, and they're going to a hotel, and they need to buy a hotel room, and they go, oh. So they could find the next cheapest room because they're two 18-ish-year-old boys. I assume that's what they're gonna do. So we could talk about how much the next room sells for. That's what they're most commonly gonna do. But we found out that Quinn's family is going. There are other hotel rooms available that will accommodate all of Quinn's siblings and parents, right? They can get a suite. So normally when we talk about what color you absorb, we talk about the lowest energy transition, like that next hotel room, but there are fancy rooms available and you can absorb lots of colors of light. So you could put X-ray light into this and remove a core electron from one of the carbons. We always have the ability to move electrons around, but we're usually talking about taking a valence electron and doing the easiest thing to it. Is that okay?
Like, does it kind of also depend on like the length of like the CH? Or, like,
So the length of the thing, so if there's only two, the distance would be this. So if you had like ethylene, you call it, the distance between the highest occupied level and the lowest unoccupied level is this. If instead you did like a chain that looked like this forever, we call that polyacetylene where I come from, or whatever you wanted to call it, the distance would be much smaller. Again, between the highest occupied and the lowest unoccupied, those two levels approach each other as the chain or the box gets longer.
So if it's like, if it's longer, then it'd be like less.
There's less energy required to move to the next one. Do you talk about particles in boxes in physics?
No, really.
So many of you will go on next year to solve a particle in a box model, and this is like a real life example. It's really an excellent one. So if you find yourself solving a particle in a box, look up dyes and you'll be like, oh my god, that makes so much sense. Ascorbic acid is a strong antioxidant. Antioxidants are interesting in that they are very easily oxidized. The idea is that in the presence of vitamin C, we will preferentially oxidize the vitamin C instead of you. And so we put antioxidants in your face cream and antioxidants in your food so that the evil oxidizing agents, the oxygen mostly, will oxidize the vitamin C instead of your telomeres or whatever.
Also, that's the reason why these go back.
Yes. So that's an excellent point. Vitamin C has a relatively short shelf life because it is so easy to oxidize. Yes?
Sorry, could you explain really quickly how phenolphthalein works again? I know that like you mentioned how it absorbs the yellow light and so it looks purple. And then when it's proteinated, its color is because there's none of that conjugation area. Does that agree?
That's it.
Okay.
That's 100% of what you need to know. Stated perfectly. The reason you get scurvy if you don't have enough vitamin C is because it's used in the synthesis of collagen. Collagen is a nice protein that gives you structure to your skin. So if you don't make collagen, you don't have pretty skin. That's why everyone takes collagen supplements right now. It's all made out of ground up cows. So it's kind of
Round of cows
collagen. Yeah, we make it out of cow bits and bogs.
and dogs.
I don't think it's the delicious part, you know? Gives you like the hooves. Yummy. so we call sailors in England limeys, because they used to take limes on the boat with them so as not to get scurvy.
Makes it with their drunk.
Damn right. Call that a mojito. Dogs and cats synthesize their own vitamin C, so it would not be a vitamin from them, because they can make it. It's not that they don't make collagen, it's that they have a pathway to take what I presume to be a sugar that might look a little bit like fructose, that pentagonal structure, and turn it into vitamin C. You don't have that mechanism, so vitamin C is a vitamin for you, because you need to take it in your food. So vitamins do not cross species necessarily. I find that interesting. Sophia finds it tiring. Do plants produce vitamin C? Yes. I don't know. But they certainly make it, right? A lemon is a nice source of vitamin C.
Not like that, because like you are, if I was a plant, would there be vitamins like this that I need to take?
Presumably not. No one this year, blissfully, as far as I can think of right now, did vitamin C titration lab that everyone hates. Thank you. But this is the molecule that we use to indicate. It's called DCPIP. It's Rosa, but this is auf Deutsch. So Brecken will tell us how to say it. There you go. Why do you think this is a pretty pink compound? That's right, because this has that same pattern of alternating double and single bonds, meaning that there are delocalized pi electrons or electron conjugation that allow it to extend over the full length of the molecule and consequently absorb visible light. Why did it break in the colorless?
Because the chain is.
You got rid of that double bond on the nitrogen level.
Because right there, we have two single bonds in a row. We've broken the conjugation. So I give like farblos color less. Farblos, colorless. Farber means color in German.
Marcus color loss means without.
Yeah, that's right. This means colorless. Leuco means white. Your leukocytes are your white blood cells.
There's not a left vitamin C.
That's vitamin C. Yeah, ascorbin sour. Sour has to mean acid. Can you imagine doing chemistry in another language? Can you imagine how hard that would be? Oh my god.
I think it actually.
Chemistry,
I don't know how you do it. I don't know how you do it. I don't think you can do it Vietnamese.
Yeah, they
Right. Like,
but they made it Vietnamese. I don't know why before. They made it even harder. Like using the they made it harder. I don't know. I haven't learned that long.
that's what so I don't know that you could go backwards. I think most of your academic biology, chemistry is in English. So.
Athletics and Mandarin are super English.
Yes, I like that. That's in English. Sorry.
Oh, I found this one.
I like that. Cholecalciferol. It comes from cholesterol.
Is that cow? Is that calcium?
It's related to it. Vitamin D is associated with calcium, right? We always put them together.
And what's the ferrol?
I don't know.
Oh.
So this is your cholesterol. It was one of your types of lipids. Remember, we had triglycerides, we had phospholipids, and we had the steroidal backbone. And we found it both cholesterol as well as some of the other hormones that we talked about. In your body, in the presence of UV light, apparently we can take cholesterol and we can turn it into a proto-vitamin D, which in turn can be synthesized into proper vitamin D. This is why they tell you to go outside every day, 15 minutes hand and face. Hands and face. That's like the ball. That's the surface area skin that needs to be in the sunlight for 15 minutes for you to make approximately enough vitamin D to be you. For those of you who are looking to go like above the 45th latitude parallel, you may need to supplement with more because it's just dark a lot. Right? one's going north.
Is vitamin D associated with like bone production?
No, I don't believe it is. I thought it was associated with bones. Yeah, so it's the presence of the UV light that allows this chemical reaction to take place. So without the light, the reaction won't take place in your body. So I don't know, so if you're asking, do people of different skin tones react differently in their production of vitamin D, I have no insight into that. You're gonna need to talk to an expert. What? Well, yeah, okay. Yeah, I don't know. Cholesterol? Karthika and I think already said that's why vitamin C breaks down, but maybe it was Audrey, no, I confused these two. It was Audrey. Female, back table, right side. Lots of vitamins break down, so Prisha's extended essay, should you want to get to know more about her, was looking at vitamin C and aspirin and some other materials breaking down in the presence of oxygen and water. Drugs are very susceptible to hydrolysis and rancidity in different ways. So, be careful. But some persist for a long time. Vitamin E, for example, we use as a preservative in food. That's because it's easy to oxidize, but also, like, if you look at, who eats beef? Find a beef eater. Okay, so if you get grass-fed beef, it's a different color than like normal beef. So if you get organic grass-fed beef and you look at the actual steak, you can see in the fat of the steak that it's yellower. That is the vitamin A that was in the grass that the poor little beastie was eating. So you can see it preserved in the fat, but you can also see that it persists for a while. But once you cook it, it's probably not a viable source anymore of vitamin A or E. So the act of cooking food frequently breaks down vitamins. So I think there was a lot of effort put in at some point to knowing how to cook food to preserve different vitamins or how to can it to preserve vitamins, because food storage is a difficult problem in a lot of parts of the world. There's really not a whole lot of details here, but metals do catalyze this sometimes. So if you're putting it in a tin can, that's what we call it, even though it's not made out of tin, a lot of times now they have a plastic lining, and that's to prevent the reaction between the metal and the food. Sure, it also means that it's much harder to recycle it. So when the good comes to that. I'll let you scribble, like you're scribbling right now. I would say dogs are also omnivores, and cats.
It's probably like we needed vitamins and stuff, so we started eating different things, rather than the other way around.
Oh look, we're done with vitamins. There, xenobiotics. I said it like 3 times. What's a xenobiotic?
We're not really excited today.
So, it's bad. Examples of this would be, once upon a time, the woke leftists decided that women should have access to oral contraceptives, have control over their reproductive health. My God. And as a consequence of giving women access to oral contraceptives, they actually excrete oral contraceptives. Like, your body doesn't break all that down. So the amount of progesterone that is in like wastewater is high. And it's not all removed from water sources. And so the amount of progesterone and estrogen that people are taking in is actually higher.
So when people say there's actually hormones in the water,
Oh,
what
yeah.
do they mean? Or that's
So
something that happens?
It's a thing that happens. And so we think that perhaps people celebrate, I don't know, I was looking for a non-negative word, precocious puberty is because there's more hormones in this world than there used to be
What's precocious? You have.
before you were expecting to have. Tell us more.
Sounds like you're saying, like I'm telling
We're gonna hear the story, she's looking it up. Probably a more common example of this is DDT. DDT was a pesticide, herbicide, pesticide. Pesticide. Yes. Insecticides are a subclass of pesticides. There are pests that are not insects. Yes.
I remember when you were talking about, was it the liquid unit? And you said that the reason that like all of the little containers are dark is so that the light doesn't come in and like make them rancid.
Yes.
When I was writing the like most of the containers were also that same dark, so that's the same reason.
Yes, absolutely.
So why like so that the UV light doesn't like go in there and make it lose its properties.
Yes, 100%. So this pesticide that was used on agricultural acreage washed into the wastewater. It ended up being taken up by condors. The California condor would lay eggs that were weakened because of the presence of DDT in their bodies, and so the condor population like really fell off because of the DDT and persistent like pollutant, these xenobiotics. I thought it might be an example. It reminds you of another thing, what you got?
So, Russia, like, in the mid-1900s, started, like, terraforming, in Central Asia, and they destroyed this really big lake that was, like, really controlling the climate of that area. And so, like, the lake struck out a bunch of salt, and there was more than the salt gets blown up to the Gulf, which is where the magnetic water is going.
Right.
And so then they have to flush the fields with more water, and then they started using like pesticides, right? And those get flushed down, they flush out the salt, but then they dry up, and then they get blown back up there. And so people in that area have super high rates of cancer because all of the pesticides are going in circles around that area.
Oh, great. They're talking about with the Great Salt Lake, its level was going down really fast in Utah. And they were worried about the ramifications. I think it's exactly that. As the land is more and more exposed, the salt residues are gonna be blown up into the wind and go ruin the agricultural land nearby. So we talked a little about DDT. We used it for 30 years. It was great. It appears that it might target mosquitoes, so that sounds even better. We don't like mosquitoes. A near eradication of malaria and dengue fever. Unfortunately, the bugaboos are smarter than we are, and they developed resistance to DDT. But DDT is extremely long-lived in the environment. Look at that molecule. Lasts forever. my condors struggled because they were the largest organisms in their food chain. Similarly, pregnant ladies struggle with mercury. Small amounts of mercury are in the water. I was like, did we not talk about that in biology? The bacteria that take mercury and reduce mercury, methyl mercury back to mercury? It's in the textbook. Wasn't in the notes. Very interesting. So we have something in the water and the plankton eat it. The insects eat the plankton, the fish eat the insects, the big fish eat the little fish, and the humans eat the big fish. Unfortunately, each time we go through this, we're increasing the level of mercury because it is not excreted from the organism. So everyone collects all of it and more as they continue to eat. So that is referred to as biomagnification, the accumulation of non-metabolized xenobiotics.
Mercury is considered a xenobiotic.
You don't make it. I don't know if antibiotics are xenobiotics. I believe you. There you go, you watch MSG, Kim. So heavy metals do this a lot. Yeah, they're really bad. They denature your proteins, so if you were to be drinking a lot of water in Flint, Michigan, and you perhaps were quite small, you would be having some trouble making some proteins that might help develop your brain properly.
Is the water crisis in Flint part of geographic or just like
I don't think it's geographic. I think it's simply because they have an old system. Like, I think it's because the automobile industry in Detroit died, and so they have a really old infrastructure system, and they don't have the money to repair it, and so they still have lead pipes. In most of the country, we have replaced lead pipes with other alternatives. Nothing.
People are going there and they're not like, they don't have the stuff that you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
This is very.
Yes. Completely unacceptable. Why do heavy metals mess up proteins?
Because it binds to the thingy and stop the hydrogen bonding and then change the shape.
It changes the tertiary structure of proteins, so all the nitrogens that are in the side chain and in that peptide bond can make coordinate covalent bonds to the heavy metal, and the presence of those bonds will change the tertiary structure.
Like where does the thing, the heavy metal bind
So like lysine has a nice little nitrogen hanging off of it, right?
to? In the R.
In the R group. And so that N, instead of finding wherever it's supposed to hydrogen bond or whatever it's supposed to do, is like, ooh, that metal looks great, I'm gonna make a coordinate covalent bond. And so the strength of that coordinate covalent bond is apparently enough better than the intermolecular forces that it will change the tertiary structure.
Does that depending on like how reactive the metal is? Like I know that people like eat like gold, but some people eat like gold when it's fine. It's like gold is like a really
You can eat all of the gold you
stable.
feel free. Goldschlager it up and call.
It does not deal with like the protein structure, but like more reactive metals like that nitrogen and replaces something is able to replace nitrogen is what it is for.
But it's also about whether or not the metal can act as a really good Lewis acid. So if you have a neutral gold particle, it's not going to be a really great acid. But for an active metal, you're going to have a cation, and that cation is going to be more subject to making those coordinate covalent bonds to the nitrogen. In addition to peeing out hormones, you also pee out drugs of like antibiotic bacteria.
The hospital really tell you
triclosan soap, please stop. There's no reason for you to be using antibacterial soap. Just wash your hands. Wash your hands with soap. Triclosan's the devil.
What is
It's like if you buy antibacterial hand soap for your bathroom, that is the ingredient in antibacterial hand soap, but it's making these stupid superbugs.
Oh, 'cause they're gonna use this,
Because they're getting resistance to triclosan, which used to be like a good way for us to kill those bugs, but now since everyone's just,
why is no one stopping?
I don't know.
FDA, they don't care, are they responsible?
I mean, yes.
Because if we let the bugs get resistant, we can sell more different products. No, but the FDA. Why would they care? They are.
Who's paying the FDA is I think her point.
Yeah, there's money drives everything.
They get to make more products, sell things, and then they can sponsor the FDA.
Apparently when you wash your clothes, if you use detergents, there are two types of detergent you can use. You can use biological and chemical detergents. I think that sounds reasonable. I don't think I'd call it a detergent though. I don't know, when you open your Tide, there are two things in Tide that clean your clothes. One of them is biological, one of them is chemical. The biological one isn't a detergent because it's a freaking enzyme. The enzyme goes in and it's like, yum. You have lots of goopy organic things that you left behind on your clothes. That's my favorite food. Let me eat them. Right? So in baby detergent, so if you're looking to get Rob Holmes a gift, typically you buy special detergent that does not eat cells. It does not have the biological ingredients because that detergent can irritate really sensitive skin. So if you use Gentle Tide or Dreft, it only has the chemical detergent in it. Why what?
Why would the biological like be
The enzyme make the, oh, just like the enzyme, is it still left residual on the clothes after?
Yes. So the enzyme is really heat tolerant because it's got to go through a wash cycle. So we're going to go to some hot spring somewhere to engineer this enzyme that's really good at eating sweat and whatever. And we find that its residue on the clothing eats skin.
On the clothes, the enzyme, the residual now.
Saying, can you see leftover detergent on clothing? I don't know. I switched to a different Tide because I was getting white spots on my clothes. I was like, this is not acceptable. Use them Tide Pods now. They look so tasty.
When it has some little like that.
Yeah, they look very
Look
satisfying.
at people make stuff look really un-yummy. I feel like they should make a snack based on the Tide Pod.
That sounds like a really safe idea. I'm sure the FDA is going to be the first to endorse a candy that looks like a Tide Pod.
No, because there are those jellies you can eat that they
Yeah.
look worse than your
Yes.
mouth.
Yeah.
No, they're like, I'm talking about the nutrition level.
I don't know that you can buy them anywhere in the US.
And the Tide Pods are just for getting rushes.
It's like,
I know, but it's just how much.
Sophia's our resident expert on soap. What's soap? Okay, so it's a fat with a sodium on the end of it. Yes. She made it for her IA.
oh, so
Her IA was about saponification, the making of soap. When does that day come?
Tuesday when we come back. No.
Yes.
We do like, because like after anything,
Like that would be the time, so like at a public school after AP exams, the kids come back and they have a few weeks of classes. That would be the perfect time to do it, but y'all don't come back.
I'm looking. We go into my, I think we don't come back.
really, it makes slime and do fun stuff. I only want to come back to like, what do you want to do? Yeah.
Like May 7th.
Gummy bears, just like a bunch of like herbal gummy bears,
They're different
and they get into the shape.
Tiny.
Just get a Tide Pod and then get like those silicone bowl
And we have-
cutters and put the Tide Pod in.
They produce
Yeah.
it very first like on the very last.
Those are people who use it, right?
And then the day before we apply it.
Okay, hold your breath for 6 more of these, then we'll be done. The SL part.
The schedule for
The SL part.
Okay, so the difference between a soap and a detergent is that what Sophia put on the end of hers was a carboxylate that was neutralized by a sodium. The carboxylate is replaced by a sulfonate, and we have a detergent. It's a really similar compound, so sodium lauryl sulfate and sodium lauryl sulfate are the two detergents that are in your cheap shampoo that my girl would never use, right? They're sulfate free. Okay, but like most of us, just sulfate shampoo, sorry. Initially, we used these branch chains. They apparently like stay forever, and so when the water would flow out into like whatever lake or ocean it goes to, the detergent that was, yeah, it's gross. The detergent that was left behind would make bubbles. And so you would have suds on the edge of the water.
In the ocean.
In the ocean or in a still water, like in any, like wherever the water went, you had suds on the side of it. And the presence of those suds, the persistent foam, like messed everything up. Like the things that were supposed to live there couldn't live there because we had like a totally different surface area suddenly, and we had all sorts of different things on the edge of the lake, and there was no light coming through on the edge because they would block the light coming in. And so we have essentially replaced all of the branched with linear chains, which apparently are much less good at foaming. But you can imagine, like, I hate it when my shampoo doesn't foam up. You wash it the second time, you're like, yes. I like the bubbles. But I think environmentally, foam is probably not great. Bubbles are not great.
I mean, I have something.
And they still foam.
It's not like, yeah, but I wash my detergent. That makes sense, like.
No.
It's like animal foam.
It's not like protein bubbles or clear, it's like suds.
Yeah.
Not suds. That makes sense?
Because they replace their sulfate with something that sounds like sulfate.
Right. What is sulfate free shampoo? What is sulfate?
It's just shampoo.
No, but what does it look like? What is it like?
It looks like shampoo.
Looks like
No, what is it?
Oh,
It's like
The
something.
techniques are not that good.
They replace sulfate with like something
Can you search up what's in
that sounds
OTX?
like sulfoacetate.
Like the brand OTX shampoos, because they got sued for causing cancer. And then
Oh, I heard about it. Yeah,
What are you doing with cancer-causing shampoo?
no, so there's this company named OTX that was like really like it was.
So like I said, they just replaced the carboxylate with the
The
sulfate.
opal.
Yeah.
That's detergent instead of soap.
And then one day I go online and I'm just seeing big lawsuit because it's been linked to causing cancer. I was like, whoa. OTX. And it's not even like their whole entire line. It's apparently just specific.
Just the one you liked?
No, it wasn't the one I used. I was, what was it? No, it wasn't the Argan one.
It contains benzene, for God's sake. Yes, it causes cancer.
Why would you put benzene?
I used to use this all the time.
What is
So do you know why benzene causes cancer?
No, this one.
Anybody?
All I know is that it does.
Bueller?
you use good conditioner?
Joke movie that apparently you haven't seen. Margaret's seen it. Look at her.
But not with.
Okay, can you imagine what graphite looks like? Does anyone have any? I mean, it's fine. Okay, so you have these sheets that have the hexagons of benzene, right? All made into that like wire fence look. And then they stack on each other. There's an interaction between the sheets. We call it pi to pi stacking, but we don't need to use those words if we don't want to. And you break it as you're writing, right? You're sliding one sheet off of another. but there is an interaction that holds them together. Makes it graphite, like they do stick. So think about what DNA looks like. You're imagining DNA? I like it.
Like flat benzene.
No, I mean like DNA.
No, I just want a pretty image of DNA. Why are they all so ugly? Look like extra ugly today. Okay, so this is what I chose. I'm sorry you guys don't like it. I'm not in love with it, but can you identify along the outside the backbone? Made out of your ribose sugars and your phosphates or whatever. And then on the inside, you got your nitrogenous bases. And do you see how they're stacked up, kind of like graphite? Feel that? You have these little nitrogenous bases that are stacked up, one on top of the other, a lot like graphite. So let's look at a nitrogenous base.
Can you draw?
Oh my goodness, look at that. We could have looked in the data booklet. Do you notice that they have that alternating structure of double and single bonds? It's such a nice structural motif. But they stack up on each other and they have this pi-pi stacking. We talk about the hydrogen bonds between them. But there's also something that's sort of holding them in place along the single strand. What does benzene look like? Everyone who says a pyrimidine, gold star.
A pyrimidine.
Right? It looks like the bottom set.
Yes.
It's a hexagon. It's got double and single bonds. She's filming me. So a benzene molecule comes into DNA's like orbit and it takes the place of one of these nitrogenous bases. That means you get an off by one error. What happens when you off by one DNA?
Mutation, displacement thingy, and then like everything.
Like your frame shifts, everything is messed up, and so you break your DNA, and when you break DNA, that's like a way of getting cancer.
I love that. They just put benzene.
How
So
is Johnson & Johnson still allowed to do that?
Robert Wood Johnson is a very rich man. I
Wait,
think he's a very
Johnson
dead
&
man, but
Johnson,
he's a
the
very
baby
rich
thing?
man.
No, Johnson & Johnson is the family company for OGX.
Wow.
Yeah, so he has shampoo with benzene.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I assume they didn't know there was benzene in it. I assume they think that the benzene, like they used the benzene to synthesize something. It's a great solvent. Like we used to use benzene, we just don't get to anymore. That's quite bad for you. It's like methyl mercury. I don't think people understood how bad methyl mercury was until a researcher at Yale killed. Like she didn't kill herself, but she did.
With methyl mercury?
I mean, she didn't do it on purpose. It was like the buildup of methyl mercury in her body over time working with this. It was not understood how toxic it was.
Like how people used to put radium in paint, and then the dude's jaw fell off.
I have no idea. I didn't know her.
Or
I
they
just
put
know,
radium in, like,
that's when we
supplements.
discovered that methyl mercury was really quite bad.
It was like,
What?
Something came down to shampoo that against
your scalp.
Your scalp?
The pores
I don't know
in
if it
your
went through the
skin.
scalp or if, you get a little in your mouth. I don't know how you're getting it. I don't know. All you people who say you don't know how bad deodorant tastes, you may all go to hell because everybody knows how bad deodorant tastes.
What
You
do
get a
you mean
little
by
tiny
that?
bit on your finger and you're like, oh my god, that is awful. Like it is
What?
memorable. You only have to do it one
I'm
time.
not gonna.
All you're gonna say you don't know how deodorant tastes. I do not recommend licking it. It's a terrible, terrible taste. I didn't
I don't
do
think
it
I'm
on
gonna do that.
purpose.
That should be one of our experiments to the last one.
I can't believe you
No.
you've been using deodorant for like a
That's
number of years. Now, one time in your life you accidentally.
I mean, if something a lip balm where if you ate it, it'd be toxic. They should not be making lip balm.
It's very hygroscopic, so it sucks all the water off your tongue.
That's the.
Like it's a tactile thing. You can feel it extracting the water. I mean, I don't think I have pica. Like I'm not eating things I'm not supposed to eat. Like I just.
By accident.
It's just morbid. I recommend all of y'all eat.
It was curiosity, not by an accident.
No, it was totally by accident, but I just can't believe.
I think Remy's just projecting.
I feel free to lick it. Just make sure you lick your own. Licking someone else's deodorant is like next level. Next level.
Fire someone for eating purposes. No, like I can see how someone would accidentally like eat deodorant. Because if you have like a spray deodorant, that's like. If you keep on
Spraying it in your mouth, like mouth spray.
No, like no, no.
Someone has some done that
You just
though.
angle
For
it
some people
upwards,
live
right?
on
And then you
Earth.
just
At least
move
one
like
person
this.
has
From
something.
here.
Oh, deodorant makes me
Yeah,
smell
like
clean
you
then.
actually spray perfume into your mouth.
I'm certainly,
Like
do
the
we all
cups
admit
in
that
the
we know
mini
what
DR.
perfume tastes like?
Oh my god, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Man down.
Host gas complexes, Tom Spiro, Princeton University. Nobel Prize for this, but not for Tom Spiro. Enzymes, big thing, has a spot where the substrate fits in, magic happens. Yo, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make an inorganic version of this. I'm gonna call that the host. The guest is gonna be the molecule that can fit in. Doing chemistry. Like holding molecules. What are enzymes for?
Was this only?
When you hold this, like, synthetic enzyme.
Yes, that is what I'm trying to call it.
For the synthetic enzymes, do you use it on synthetic molecules? Or do you also use it on
We use it a lot to bind up pollutants. So we have a substrate that we want to get rid of.
Oh my.
We can make something that has a specific shape for it that will pick it up in the environment. So we can use this for remediation of waste
Then where does the remediated waste go?
into the garbage.
You know what?
So if you ever spilled mercury, which I'm presuming you haven't done, the mercury spill kit contains a sponge. And so that sponge, I don't remember what it's made of, it's made of another metal, but mercury and the metal in the sponge amalgamate to make a solid solution. So you wipe the sponge over the mercury is wicked into the sponge and rendered like inert and solid. So then you just dispose of it in the trash. Or like if you have a big spill in a lab, you use vermiculite. And so vermiculite is like just a really good adsorber. So you throw it into the spill, it sucks up all the stuff, and you scoop it into the bin because you've rendered it not so volatile.
Yeah, I thought this was like removing waste. Eco-friendly, like, you know, like eco-friendly thing, not just like picking up garbage.
It is an eco-friendly thing. I'm just giving you some examples that you may have heard of, like a mercury sponge.
Like taking garbage away.
So one of the words we use here is zeolite.
That looks like 4 Twizzlers.
The cool picture on the left is a zeolite. It's like a really, really porous piece of rock. And so you can get things to fit in those pores. One thing they do with this is if you wanted to make a hydrogen fuel cell, you would have to hold a lot of hydrogen, right? What I know about hydrogen is it's a gas, and gases are really undense. And so even if you have like enough hydrogen to fuel your car, the volume that the hydrogen is going to take up is a lot more than 13 gallons of your octane fuel, right? And so what they do is they make a solid, often not one of these, but the hydrogen will bind to the solid, and the hydrogen in the solid will actually be packed 100 times more densely than hydrogen gas. So it's a way of transporting hydrogen, zeolite. My friends at Rice, they were putting cancer drugs and MRI contrast agents into different versions of buckyballs and carbon nanotubes. So they would take a carbon nanotube, they'd cut it into fragments, and they'd put gadolinium inside it. Gadolinium is number 64. It has 7 unpaired electrons. It shows up in an MRI real bright, all them electrons. And so they could put on the inside the gadolinium, on the outside of this little like capsule, they would put something that targeted to a type of cell, like a cancerous cell, and so they could get like an actual image of a specific region of the body using this host guest chemistry. So the host is the nanotube, and the guessed is both what I'm putting inside it, the gadolinium to make the MRI contrast agent, and then I can decorate it with things on the outside so that the host goes to the right spot. We can make plastic out of starch. You ever have Botan rice candy?
Is it the white,
Botan rice. What's the downside of it? No.
wait, what are we
Talking about Botan rice candy.
Where are you eating the paper?
Wait, like,
No,
that's
I don't-
edible.
Oh,
That's the whole point of it.
but it doesn't
It tastes trash.
Yeah.
You don't like Botan rice candy?
No, the paper on the outside.
I like paper on the outside.
What?
There's no taste to it.
But it's.
Okay, everyone is now talking like they know what it is. Like 30 seconds ago, y'all pretended you've never seen it.
I've never seen it.
Wait, what about white rabbit?
That-
White rabbit candy.
That was not
It's
what I
like-
was talking about. The rabbit can?
No,
Yeah.
white
I'm talking about the
rabbit.
white rabbit.
White.
No, that's really
Is
good.
white rabbit edible?
Okay, that's Botan rice candy.
They have like,
Yes, it's Asian.
yeah, they have film around the wrapper.
What can I say?
Looks like solidified.
Do you notice the plasticky material outside the delicious candy? It's not my favorite, honestly. It's actually made out of starch. They have made a plastic alternative out of starch. It is water soluble. When you put that in your mouth, the magical plastic dissolves.
It's so fun.
We make like actual plastic out of starch now.
Is that what's
But it
around
is-
the Tide Pods?
Okay, yes. The downside of it is that it just doesn't last that long. If y'all do yard waste in the city of Houston and you have to use those infernal leaf bags, those plastic leaf bags you have to buy at the Home Depot, because they only take one variety, y'all are like, what's yard work? Oh, they all.
I didn't car wash it.
That's funny. Those things biodegrade really easily, so it's great that they're better for the environment because they biodegrade, but it sucks because they tear like all the time, all the time. Very expensive, because you know, you need 3 of them to take the place of one plastic bag. I'm done with the SL part of biochemistry. The environmental part is by leaps and bounds